Russian politicians and the Kremlin's propagandists are desperately trying to persuade the whole world that Crimea is Russian territory. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 is characterized by Russian propaganda as historical justice.
Knowing the history of Crimea is enough. Knowing what Russia meant for Crimea and Crimea meant for Russia.
But Russia is not the first country that has ties with the Crimean Peninsula.
Russian ownership of Crimean Peninsula began in 1783 and ended in 1954 with some short breaks, when Crimea was under European occupation in the 20th century. That is just around 5.5% of Crimea's recorded history.
That means that Crimea was a part of Russia for less than 200 years. At the same time, the Crimean Khanate existed for more than 300 years, from 1449 until 1783, when it was annexed by the Russian Empire.
They came to Crimea claiming they are there to protect the Christian population and that Christians belong to the Moscow Patriarchy. Arianist Christianity was widespread in Crimea from the 3rd century AD. There was also non-Arian Christianity, which belonged to the Constantinople Patriarchy. Urums were the ones belonging to this branch.
If we look at old census records, we will, to our surprise, or maybe without any surprise, see that 95% of Crimea's population was Crimean Tatars, while ethnic Russians comprised, best case scenario, about 6,000 people.
Using forced migrations of Russians to the peninsula and repressions against the Aboriginal population, the Russian Empire tried to increase the number of the Russian-speaking population. Yet, Russians only became the majority in Crimea after the deportation of the Crimean Tatars from the peninsula in 1943. In 1945, Soviet authorities started changing its toponymy.
The Regional Executive Committee was obliged to continue its work by renaming settlements, railway stations, rivers, valleys, and other locations with Tatar names. District committees were obliged to eradicate anything Tatar and combat the use of any Tatar words and names.
This was the decree of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the RSFSR from August 21, 1945. Historic names, the evidence that Crimea is the homeland of the Crimean Tatars, disappeared from maps. Stalin's topographists were not very imaginative. That is why Karasu changed to Karasi, which means Kapers. Surin changed to Siren, which means Ilyak. There were also 4 villages called Molochne, meaning milky, 2 villages called Ivanovka, etc.
Without this state policy, without the encouragement of Russians to move to Crimea, without the encouragement of Crimeans to leave the peninsula in the 19th century, and without the deportation of Crimean Tatars in 1944, Russians would never have become the majority on the peninsula. Saying that Crimea is some kind of primordial Russian land is not just supporting Putin's perspective, it is acknowledging your own ignorance.
But the Kremlin's propagandists are using tools tested back in the Soviet times. They are substituting facts, rewriting history books, and attempting to persuade everyone that their opinions are objective reality. They are using lies to cover up their crimes. Reported by Imran Husseinov, UATV.